So recently, Epomaker sent over their Shadow X mechanical keyboard for me to review. Well, recently is a bit of a stretch because the keyboard has been sitting on my desk since May. And here's the thing, right? I didn't want to do the review. I'll explain why in a moment, but first, let's get the review out of the way. I promise this will take less than a minute. The Shadow X comes with a plastic construction. Now, I know what you're thinking. Seriously, plastic? But I'm kind of over the whole aluminum hype. The plastic build actually feels quite solid. The keyboard is very satisfying to type on. No stabilizer ticks, and a really deep sounding keyboard with the SA-like keycaps. It has a LCD screen and a knob that only serves to toggle between Bluetooth connections. But why do you need a knob for this specific function? I have no idea either. It has a 1 kHz polling rate and a 3000 mAh power battery. It's got all the bells and whistles, gasket mounted design with tons of foam for that deep sounding profile. They also sent over 2 switches, Peace Lily, a long pull switch, and Nude Rosa, a silence switch. I'm honestly impressed how smooth they are out of the box. No spring crunch, no lift ping with nice and tight housings. Here's what they sound like on the Shadow X. One's loud and one's quiet. One feels really good to type on, the other is mushy, never really like silent. Link to buy the Shadow X is in the description below, but watch till the end before you decide to buy or not. You have been warned. Now that the review is out of the way, come here. Here's the thing, I didn't want to just review the keyboard and just move on like that, because there's a lot more to the story. Let's dive into the real reason I hesitated to make this video. When any brand sends me a keyboard for review, usually I follow a set process. I use it for a couple of weeks or days, I mod it a little bit, I gather my thoughts, and if the product is already on the market, then I check what the community has to say before I put together a video idea. But when I dug into Epomaker, I found more than just product reviews about this company. So today, I want to take you on a journey to uncover who Epomaker really is, the controversy surrounding them, and hopefully answer the question, can you trust Epomaker? Let's start at the very beginning. So Epomaker is short for Epoch of Makers. Players in the space, aside from big brands like Logitech, Corsair, include very popularly Massdrop, also known as Drop today, and Keychron. But unlike Drop and Keychron, Epomaker did not start off designing their own line of keyboards. They were actually resellers. The first 2 keyboards that Epomaker resold were Atom 66 from Nice Keyboard and Keycool KC84. The KC84 was also resold by Yunzi, another Chinese company which was frequently confused to be the same as Epomaker since the products they carry were pretty similar. Reception of the Atom and KC keyboards were, well, mixed. The guys over at Switch and Click summed up their review of the KC, calling it a keyboard that checks all of the boxes, but at the end of the day doesn't offer a truly unique feel or experience. You can't help but get the feeling that this sucker was mass-produced at scale, so it could be offered at a super low price. So that's not exactly a glowing endorsement for a new company trying to break into the space. Well, not a great start by any means, but nonetheless, a start after all. This was the year that Epomaker took a huge leap. On 27th of May 2020, Epomaker launched the GK88XS Kickstarter project in collaboration with Skylong. This keyboard was a big deal. First and foremost, the GK68 comes with hot swap sockets, which was in itself a unique feature since the default configuration for pre-built keyboards was mostly soldered. Second, you can get the GK68 in either a plastic or fully CNC machined aluminum, which was something that most pre-builds did not offer back then. Wireless connectivity combined with the ability to program macros, the GK68 is the one to get for productivity users. It was this very project that I got to know of the Epomaker brand as well, but loyal viewers would know what keyboard I eventually went with. See, my first impression of Epomaker was that they simply made pretty good keyboards. After this brief encounter, I honestly didn't pay close attention to them because I soon discovered the world of custom mechanical keyboards, and I never looked back since. Anyway, with over 2,000 backers and almost $300,000 pledged, the project sounds like a huge success, right? Reviewers were even saying plenty of good things too, and if you searched up reviews on the GK68 now, it's not hard to find people still recommending the keyboard today. Except, when you look a little closer, things start to fall apart. Backers started reporting major issues. Keyboards not being delivered months after the promised delivery dates, wrong orders, plenty of date on arrivals, and poor customer support. Despite these red flags, Epomaker kept pushing forward with more Kickstarter projects. They even launched another one in November of 2020, while backers from the first project were still waiting for their orders. Imagine being a backer and seeing that they haven't delivered on their first promise and now they're already asking for more money. That being said, personally, if I were a backer back then, I would honestly have given them a pass. Just because the GK68 is after all their first official product. And for a new company, I would give them a chance to redeem themselves. But to be honest, launching another project while the previous one is still unfulfilled would get on my nerves pretty easily. Anyway, to sum up 2020 for Epomaker, it's a story of a quick rise to fame. Some rough patches here and there, but nothing really quite detrimental. April 2021, Epomaker decided to put on a new logo and also revamped their website into the one that you see today. On it, they wrote, and I quote, "The goals for our keyboards are three things: customizability, affordability, and high standards. Our previous campaigns have all been successful, not only in funding, but also in the logistics and delivery of the products to our amazing backers." Reading this now, and knowing what I know, these people are seriously delusional. Okay, anyway, moving on. Shortly after, Epomaker went on a streak and launched 3 more Kickstarter projects in May, August, and December for the AK84S, NT68, and Lite 60% respectively. By the time these concluded, there were over 3,000 backers and over $400,000 raised for these 3 alone. These are very impressive revenue for a 2-year-old company, even after Kickstarter takes their cut. Unfortunately, things didn't get any better. Some backers were still not getting their orders, again with plenty of dead on arrival units with a customer support that sucks. So the same promise of "we'll do better next time" kept coming. But by now, the community had caught on. Can you imagine the feeling of being a backer behind these projects? Combined with the whole COVID situation, there's almost no chance of you getting your money's worth. But things were about to get a hell lot messier. June 2022, Epomaker launched yet another Kickstarter project in collaboration with Haru, the TH96. This project would eventually conclude a month later with over 1,800 backers and over $200,000 raised. But before backers could even receive their orders, a competitor started selling a nearly identical keyboard. Take a look at this. The keyboard you see here is not the TH96. This is the VN96. Eerily similar, right? Copies of the VN96 were being sold internationally by KP Republic, another Chinese company, and Epomaker did not take this lightly. They immediately called this out and accused KP Republic of trademark infringement and threatened legal action to close all of the AliExpress and other online stores selling the VN96. On the surface, it seems like a pretty straightforward issue. Epomaker had a deal with Haru, and KP Republic sold the keyboard before Epomaker could. So surely Epomaker would have the right to ask KP Republic to stop the sale, right? But how exactly? How did KP Republic manage to get a hold of the TH or VN96? See, unless KP Republic had corporate spies within Haru, it seemed rather unlikely to me that within such a short time frame, a company would just give up costly manufacturing molds or ship thousands of products to someone who's not in a deal with them. Here's the twist. KP Republic had also been authorized by Haru to sell their products on the international market, and this is where it gets messy. Because not only that, KP Republic claimed that their certificate was the official one and that Epomaker falsified theirs. Allegedly, Epomaker certificate was issued by a Chinese vendor located in Zhengzhou, who KP Republic claimed had no right in making statements on behalf of Duke Haro headquartered in Zhongshan. If that is so, then where did Epomaker get their certificate from? It quickly became a PR nightmare, with Epomaker and KP Republic seemingly headed to a legal battle in court. And that's when Duke Haro decided to come out from the shadows. In September, Duke Haro issued a statement basically saying, "Lol, our fault, KP Republic shouldn't have received the keyboards." At this point, the damage done to both Epomaker and KP Republic had been done. Following Duke Haro's statement, Epomaker also put out an apology note to clarify their point of view. But in my opinion, what they said here borders on whitewashing and is an attempt at downplaying this entire situation. Let's examine what they said closely. Well, the first page is basically mostly PR talk, saying that they have fallen short of the standards and they're working hard behind the scenes and how service will improve, blah 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 blah. More importantly, I want to bring your attention to these few lines. Regarding the latest Kickstarter, they said, these issues shouldn't have been made public, and it's never their intention to harm any parties. Allegedly, they said that the TH96 will only be sold exclusively by Epomaker, and the VN96 is reserved for the Chinese market. Rightfully then, they got angry at KP Republic, who sold the VN96 without Epomaker knowing, and they felt the need to take action against them. Everything they say seems to make sense, until we notice the biggest loophole in Epomaker's statement. Here's what I noticed. Epomaker had a deal with Duke Haro to sell their products exclusively. They then noticed that KP Republic was selling Duke Haro's stuff. Unless there's evidence that KP Republic stole or copied the designs from either of them, there's really no case to be had here. And stealing or copying designs makes it a much more serious crime. So Epomaker in fact should have gone after Duke Haro first and foremost, before threatening KP Republic. If anything, Duke Haro should compensate Epomaker for this breach of contract. So then why is Epomaker threatening KP Republic in an over-the-top manner, saying that they will shut them down entirely? And throughout this controversy, Epomaker made libelous claims against KP Republic, and although records of these claims were taken down, responses by the community suggest that they were defamatory in nature and eager to undermine KP Republic in order to paint them as the big bad in all of this. So all I see here is someone seeing a slither of opportunity to get rid of competition, however despicable it is. And believe it or not, this isn't even the worst thing about them. As if they were trying to salvage their reputation, they began to astroturf, which led to them getting banned from subreddits like r/mechanical keyboard and budget keeps. They then behaved like some unrepentant teenagers trying to escape punishment by creating alt accounts to get past these bans. Of course, Reddit stepped in and banned them from the platform entirely, given these egregious acts. It is nothing short of a crash and burn at this point. Now, I've saved some of the shadiest practices for last, and believe me, these are more than just mistakes. First up, let's talk about shipping, because you might be wondering why some customers never got their orders. Well, most of them received emails saying that their package was on the way, complete with a tracking number. So that should be safe, right? What happened? Well, their packages was apparently stuck at customs. And why? Turns out, Epomaker was deliberately under-declaring these packages to dodge taxes. That's right, they even notified the customers that they were doing so as if it was some kind of favour. But here's the catch. When customs caught on during random inspections, these packages were either destroyed entirely or sent back to their country of origin. And that's not just some bad customer service, it's literally downright illegal. Then we get to dropshipping and white labeling, which by the way aren't inherently bad practices. Lots of sellers do this. KP Republic, Yunzi, Monster Gear with their Galaxy AT, and not to mention the many Leoborg and Aula keyboards outside of Epomaker white labels. For those who don't know, white labeling is when a company slaps their logo on someone's product, like when Epomaker rebranded Skylong's GK68 as their own. But here's the difference between a good label and a bad label. Legitimate companies provide support for those products. Epomaker, on the other hand, left customers in the dark, with zero support and a trail of broken promises, especially with their Kickstarter fiascos. They made empty promises to do better. They spoke outright lies about timely deliveries with their Kickstarter projects, and still they had the nerve to say that they were successful in the logistics department. Like, what? At this point, I think it's pretty clear that Epomaker has made far too many missteps. From mismanagement to outright illegal business practices, the brand has a long way to go before it can regain trust. And trust in this hobby is really difficult to establish, especially in recent years when so many people have been screwed over by niche vendors and sellers who just suddenly packed up and went bankrupt. And with the latest developments, it seems that Epomaker has still not yet learned from their lessons. Like, why? To compound the issue, whether we like it or not, Epomaker is still one of the most well-known mechanical keyboard brands out there. And to offer such a bad experience to a customer who is possibly buying their first mechanical keyboard, it's just horrible for the well-being of the overall community. Personally, I hope some major and positive changes happen. As a priority, they need to rehabilitate their image through whatever means necessary. Maybe it's addressing every complaint that is sent their way on social media platforms. Maybe it's refunding people's purchases, or maybe it's giving them free replacements. Whatever they do, they have the responsibility to make it up to their customers. Whatever it takes, they need to show some sincerity and take actual action instead of just making empty promises. Remember, trust is fragile. It is easy to lose and one of the hardest things to get back. Well, if you are still interested in their keyboards, I strongly recommend purchasing through platforms like Amazon that have firm refund policies, so at least you are somewhat protected in the event that your copy is bad. So, should you give Epomaker a second chance? That's up to you. Alright, I'm done. See ya.